I talk to dads. I know I do. I talk to men who are fathers now and to young men who anticipate being fathers someday. Probably describes 98% plus of my negligible audience. There are almost no women that I know of who pay attention to me. I'm not aware of any women who pay any sort of regular attention to me other than my wife, and it could be she's humoring me. But the people who attend to what I have to say are dads, either presently or in the future, but have that dad frame of mind. They are dads, they are fathers, which is great because that's who I want to talk to. That we could easily argue that everything in civil society is broken right now in one way or another, that everything is corrupted by Marxism to such a huge degree that where things are not openly and obviously corrupt, they are subtly and covertly corrupt to the degree that no one trusts anything. Everything is broken. And I would argue that everything is broken because egoism is broken. That this is the without which not of civil society as such. This is what makes people civil, is operating from that rational self-interest that I defend at selfadoration.com. But egoism is broken because fatherhood is broken. That egoists are cultivated by egoistic fathers, and if there are no egoistic fathers, there will be no young, burgeoning, egoistic minds growing up in the homes of the Western world. And therefore, it is profoundly important to me to talk to fathers today and in the future, few in number today, hopefully massive numbers of them tomorrow, to talk to fathers about my ideas about love, sex, marriage, and family, because these are the seeds from which egoistic young adults are cultivated in father-led homes. It's not at all coincidental that my own success and survival as a poetic and philosophical influence will come about as a result of the fathers that I am cultivating, the idea of fatherhood that I am cultivating in the minds of the men who pay attention to me. That it will be their children who grow up reading my books and discussing my ideas. It will be their grandchildren who will carry me off to the university to fight against what remains of the forces of Marxism, and who knows what other evils will have emerged by then. And it will be their great-great-grandchildren who will reconquer the earth on my ideas, should they survive. And so it is totally coincident with my interest. It is totally consonant with my interest that I am cultivating fathers and this idea of fatherhood. But I'm not doing it because it's to my interest. I'm doing it because it is the truth. It is the ontologically consonant way of addressing the problem of survival for human beings, for rationally, conceptually conscious, freely willing moral agents to comport themselves in the universe. This is the way we are made. I am defending the way we are made, and in defending the way we are made, I am talking precisely to the men I need to talk to instantiate better ideas in the world. And it won't be them who does it, it won't be their children who does it, it won't be their grandchildren who does it, it'll be their great-great-grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. It'll be 3 generations, 4 generations, 5 generations from now will be the ascendancy of my style of egoism, should it survive, but it will happen as a result of the fathers that I'm talking to today. I love that. I love that. It's all one thing. This is something that I say all the time. You could argue that it's an overarching philosophical belief, and it is solely a belief. It's not something I can defend. It's all one thing means the universe is all one thing. Universe means one turning. To say that the universe is all one thing is tautological. Universe means one thing. Um, but when I say it's all one thing, I'm talking about the um, integrity in identity and causality among all entities, among everything that does exist in the universe. All of these things are consonant with one another. They are self-consistent. The universe is consistent to itself, and everything within it is self-consistent to the universe. It's all one thing. And this is the way that we will impress that idea upon our fellow men, is by living it from the inside out, by being ontologically consonant with the reality you're born in, not rebelling against it just because you can. You can, uniquely among entities, you can rebel against your nature. But there is no benefit to that, and there is every benefit to be realized from pursuing your nature as it is, living according to your actual nature as an organism, as an entity. And that means father-led homes in which the children are taught to behave as rational egoists. This is how egoism will be fixed. It will be fixed by fathers. And so I am helping fathers fix themselves so that they can raise better children, and their children can in their turn raise even better children. And there's no reason in the world that we can't raise better children forever. All we have to do is turn around. Assume that results will improve instead of being continually convinced that everything is broken and can only be broken worse. I'm at war with that idea. I acknowledge that everything is broken, but I know it can all be fixed. It can all be better. And that's why I'm talking to fathers. One of the fathers I have been talking to for years now, very grateful to him. He goes by the nom de guerre cul-de-sac hero, and I don't want to disclose his real name just in case bad things come down the pike 5 or 10 years from now. But he's a Canadian dad, hardworking dog, raising his children right, doing everything he can to get everything right in his life. I know very little about him. What I know about him is obviously what he discloses, and what he discloses is mainly in the way of social media, and I can infer a lot from what I reap of those sorts of information sources, but everything I know about him suggests to me that he is an amazingly admirable man. I love the dads that I'm talking to, all of the dads that I'm talking to, present and future dads. I really love them because they are amazingly moral people. They are thoroughgoing, thoughtful, open-minded, morally consistent, but morally ambitious people. I look up to them. They're better than me. This is how you get better in the world, is by playing with the better kids. You want to get better at basketball, play with the older kids. You want to get better at moral philosophy, hang out with better people. And because of the Church of Splendor, and because of selfadoration.com, because of Man Alive, because of the work that I've done since 2012, I've managed to attract a number of really interesting men to my sphere of influence, if you want to call it that. These are people who are willing to listen to me, and yet I am amazed by them, by how bright and ambitious and resolute they are in their pursuit of better results, better moral philosophy, but also better practical existential results. I just love these guys. I love the way they're doing things. Some of them I've met since 2012, but there are others. Jimmy Pruitt. Jimmy Pruitt I've known for 20 years. Jimmy Pruitt has been listening to me and growing with me for 20 years. And I am astounded by him, and he's a remarkable dad also, and I'm really, really grateful to know him. The cul-de-sac hero brought me to the attention of the original G, or maybe it's the other way around. The original G attracted the cul-de-sac hero to me, but this is a relationship that has had a lot of back and forth for the past 3 years, where he has um, introduced me to people who've been very beneficial to me, or just drawn my attention to things that I should know about. And I'm grateful to him that way also. Um, but I'm grateful to him just for paying attention. I don't require that anybody agree with me. I mean, that would be impossible. There's no one who agrees with me. And I'm not terribly comfortable when people seem to agree with me too much, because I think they're kissing my ass. Um, but I am very interested in people who are paying attention, because they can learn what I have to teach, and so much more importantly, they can think about what I've said and learn more from it than I had to teach in the first place, and teach it back to me. This is an important source of growth for me, is this back and forth I have with people who are willing to let me be me. And that's always a big problem. The reason that I bring the cul-de-sac hero up is that he wrote a post on his weblog about his putative inability to live up to the moral ideals of the Church of Splendor, which I thought was just amazingly, brilliantly funny, because, as I say, I look up to him. I think that he lives up to my moral ideals better than I do. But he was talking about rule number 2 of the Church of Splendor, which is, I am not arguing with you. And when you hear that, you hear, I am not arguing with you. That's rule number 2 of the Church of Splendor. That's a rule. It's a number 2 rule. It must be very important. It's number 2. I am not arguing with you. And it sounds like I'm being anti-debate, and I'm not. I am not anti-debate. I'm simply anti-most debate, because most debate is not actually debate. It's simply argument. It is simply a rancor, is the right way to think of it. That if I am called upon to invoke rule number 2 of the Church of Splendor, what I mean is that I think that the only reason that you showed up was to pick a fight. Never saw or heard of you before, and here you are, and the very first thing I see from you is an aggressive display in the form of a trick question that's designed to trap me into some kind of error or another. You're just trying to put me in the wrong so you can argue to yourself that you've gone one up on me and you beat me. I remember someone way back when, thus I refute Swan. That's what he said. It was just unbelievably idiotic. It was a stupid argument, and it ended, thus I refute Swan. Well, no. Swan is a huge body of work, grows all the time, but if you're going to take me on, you really have to go back to April 8th, 2012 at the latest. You can't start any later than that, and you can follow me back. Jimmy Pruitt's there, 1995. You can follow me back to 1985 and before. And I have been making a progressively more detailed, self-consistent argument since then. And if you want to argue with me, that's the place to argue with me, not cavilling about some minor bit of trivia that you think that if you can put me in the wrong about that little bit of nothing, that you've substantially done something in the world of debate. No, you haven't. And you're not interested in debate. All you're interested in is silencing your cognitive dissonance. And that's what I am not arguing with you means. If you have a good question, I want to answer it. If you have a really serious objection to me, you can make it, but you make it in the form of a serious argument, starting with quotations from me. If you characterize something I said and then argue with that, I'm already done with you, because you're just picking a fight. The cul-de-sac heroes take on this is different, in the sense that he does engage in debate with people that he doesn't like, and wants to engage in that sort of debate, and I think probably wants to believe in the efficacy of it. And that's, everybody wants to believe in the efficacy of their efforts. What am I doing this for? I'm going to talk to 42 people this week at the outside. Between Sunday and Sunday, if 42 people watch this movie, that'll be amazing. And someday it may be 42,000, and that's still nothing. And someday it may be 42 million, and that's still, practically speaking, nothing. If I get to 4.2 billion, then I'm really getting somewhere. But why am I investing this effort? I'm doing it in the hope that I will persuade someone. And I know that there are serious dads out there listening to me, as many as 42 of them right now. And I know I can have a persuasive impact on them by being rigorous and analytical, reasonable, unemotional, non-insulting, non-pejorative, by being persuasive, by pursuing persuasive validity. And when you are engaged in online pugilism in the form of comment thread debates or blog to blog debates or whatever, most often what's going on then is strictly war of ad hominems. It's one insult leads to another insult. It's the ping pong of insults back and forth. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the day is 24 hours long no matter what you do with it. But it's unlikely to have any efficacy. It's unlikely to persuade anyone of anything. If anything, everyone is likely to be more firmly entrenched in their original positions after the debate than they were before it. And so, as a matter of existential efficacy, it's unlikely to be successful. The other part of this is to see it from the inside out, to see I am not arguing with you from the inside out. And so on the one hand, I don't want to encourage you in the belief that you can pick fights with me. I certainly don't want to engage in that kind of mutually repulsive ad hominem ping pong with you. That'll get neither of us anywhere, and it'll just get me all worked up, and there's no benefit to it. Nothing will have changed. But if I do indulge in that sort of mutually repulsive ping pong, then I will damage myself. I will feel exercised in the moment. I'll be hot under the collar. I'll be queasy in the stomach. My pulse will pound. My fingertips will boom, 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 pound on the desktop while I'm trying to think of my next grievous insult, the grievous insult that will cut you to the quick and leave you bleeding in the street, leave you as a nasty little stain on the pavement as a reminder to all others to not cross swords with me. And do what you want to do. Do what you want to do. But that will damage you from the inside out in the immediate moment, and it will tend to damage you from the inside out enduringly, because it'll make you a more callous person, a less thoughtful, less compassionate, less human, I think, person. And I'm not criticizing the cul-de-sac here. I'm not criticizing anyone, because we all do this, and to greater and lesser degrees, and we're all wrong. We are wrong in doing it. And the harm that you do to yourself is minor. It is not hugely consequential, but it's accretive. It will accumulate over time. This is the idea of scar tissue that I talk about in the Canticle for Kathleen Sullivan. I've talked about it elsewhere also. That kind of self-inflicted wound, while it may seem minor at the time and may seem justified, and you may actually really feel good about it because you did leave that oily stain on the pavement to remind everyone else. You did Batman's justice. You were insane for a good cause. But that wound will not heal back the way it was. It will heal with a little bit of scar tissue. And the next time you introduce a wound like that, you will wound the scar tissue as well as the flesh, and what will heal back will be still more scar tissue. And this will accumulate over time to the point where you can do really ugly, mean, vicious things to strangers on the internet without a second thought. That you start off saying your mother wears army boots, and you end up revealing someone's personal information, or calling in a fake 911 call on their house to get the SWAT team to come after them. I'm not saying that anyone that I know is going to do anything at all like this, but that's where those things come from. They don't start there. They start with minor contretemps, attempting to fix the universe by repairing somebody else's bad opinions. The entire universe will be perfect as soon as this person is no longer wrong. How do you build, how do you self-justify, how do you build to greater and greater atrocities? It's by committing the small ones and ignoring the consequences, and letting that scar tissue get thicker and thicker and thicker until you don't just feel sorrow or even contempt that someone else is wrong, but feel a rage and you want to rub them out of the universe. This is not healthy. This is not good for you. And this is why rule number 2 matters. It matters that you don't indulge other people's ugliness, but what matters much more is that you don't indulge your own ugliness, because when you indulge your own ugliness, you just get uglier. And nothing ever became better or more beautiful by you making yourself uglier. And that is the right way to understand the rules of the Church of Splendor altogether, that the why of the rules is not the universe out there. The whole idea of a list of rules is just funny anyway, because I don't believe in externalized ethics. I don't believe in lists of rules. I don't believe in lists. I'm a D. Lists are, lists are an affliction of the seas. They love lists because they can convince themselves that writing things down on a list and checking them off consists of accomplishment, and the D's know that accomplishment consists of getting things done and nothing else. I hate lists. I hate the whole idea of attempting to corral the universe into 4 or 8 or 16 discrete boxes, even though I do it all the time. And I find it preposterous that you could write a list of rules over time that would tend to cohere and make sense in the order that you wrote them, that you never need to shuffle anything. I have contempt for the whole idea of rules as such, lists of rules, rules that allegedly are building upon the other. The whole Ten Commandments idea of moral philosophy is abhorrent to me, and yet there are the rules of the Church of Splendor. But the way to understand the rules of the Church of Splendor is that they have nothing to do with the world outside your mind. They're all about you and how to manage your internal intellectual and emotional resources in the way that is most advantageous to your long-term interests, all of your interests for your entire life. How best can you manage your mental resources to achieve your values now, enduringly, for the rest of your life? That's what the rules of the Church of Splendor are for. And so you can take them down in order and see what I'm talking about. I don't go to your church. Rule number 1, I don't go to your church. And all it means is I don't have to answer for what you say. I only have to answer for what I say. So if you're asking me a question about your doctrine, you're talking to the wrong person. You want to ask a question about my doctrine, I'm interested in talking about it. But, number 2, I am not arguing with you. And we just talked about what that means, but I don't go to your church, and therefore I am not arguing with you. I don't have to answer for the pain I cause you for not agreeing with you. And I don't have to submit to you attempting to inflict pain upon me in order to goad me into adopting your beliefs in preference to my own. I have no benefit to be realized from conflict, rancor, ad hominem attacks, insulting displays, pretend warfare by internet. I am not arguing with you. But to the extent that I do elect to engage with you, nevertheless, I should not be an asshole. That's rule number 3, is don't be an asshole. And it doesn't mean you should not be an asshole. It means I should not be an asshole, even if I think you're acting like a buffoon. Don't be an asshole. And the reason that I should not be an asshole is rule number 4, because butthurt is not contagious. If you did manage to inflict some pain upon me that I hope to divest myself of, this is foolish just by itself, but I hope to divest myself of this awful pain by inflicting a new pain on you, butthurt is not contagious. Number 1, I won't relieve my own pain. Number 2, there's no reason in the world to think that I will have inflicted a pain upon you. And accordingly, rule number 5, never play the other man's game. That if I'm in that game of ping-ponging insults, ping-ponging butthurt, I'm already playing your game, and that's foolish on my part, because there's no benefit for me to realize from playing your game. If I persuade you to play mine, so much the better for me, but I'm not going to play your game no matter what. And accordingly, rule number 6, I will keep my own counsel in order that I might observe rule number 7 and look out for my own. I don't go to your church. I am not arguing with you. I will not be an asshole, regardless, because butthurt is not contagious. And accordingly, I never play the other man's game. Instead, I keep my own counsel, and I look out for my own. And those are the rules of the Church of Splendor. And those rules taken together, form a sort of benediction. A benediction is a good word. I love the idea of benediction, and what I want to share with all those dads out there are good words. Everything is broken, but it doesn't have to be. Fatherhood is broken, but that changes with you. Egoism is broken until you reinvent it in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your living room, in your garage, in your backyard, and in the rest of the universe as your children sail forth in their own orbits, engendering their own young egoists. Egoism is broken until you fix it. And this is a benediction. This is a good word. This is a good word. And that's today's sermon, is the good word about the good word. So I will give you a benediction that I love. I love it. You'll hear it from me all the time. You'll see it in email if you get email from me. The benediction is good on ya. Good on ya. Good on ya. It's Aussie or Kiwi in origin. I learned it from a expatriate American. Grew up in North Boston, Italian boy from North Boston. Drafted, sent to Vietnam. For some reason, finished the war in Christchurch, New Zealand. Met a girl there. Expatriated. Went native, which is rare for expatriate Americans. Typically, they wander around all day in the expatriate ghetto, pissing and moaning to each other that you can't get a slice of decent pizza in Bavaria. But he totally went native as an Enzi, as a Kiwi, to the point that you would think that he was native. He came back to the United States. That's how I knew him. He brought his family back so that they could live part of their childhood there and part of their childhood here, experience both of their parents' worlds. It was exactly the right way to do this. If dad is around, this is, oh man, you want to talk about male leadership in action, that's it. To do that kind of thing, to move your children half a world away so that they can see how their father lived when he was a child. But good on ya, I learned from him, and I really love it. I really love it. I don't care for most Aussie slang. No worries drives me crazy. It's just like no problem. It drives me crazy. It's insanely stupid. But good on you is wonderful. It means whatever you want it to mean. It's like good for you in English, except good for you means too little, and too much of what it means is kind of pomo, kind of sarcastic. Ooh, good for you. Good on you isn't like that. Good on you just means good. It means good on you. May good be upon you. May Lady Fortune smile upon you. May the rains of good luck cascade down upon you as a gentle shower. Good on you. Good on you. Whatever it is, that I got a new job. Good on you. Got an A on my exam. Good on you. Leaving for the United States tomorrow. Oh, good on you. That'll be a wonderful trip. And it's all it means is good. It's strictly benediction. And it's kind of non-specific and non-inquisitive benediction. It doesn't mean I know all about this. I know all the details. I endorse this. It doesn't mean anything at all like that. It just means that I am glad to see you achieving your values in the world. I am delighted that you have values, that you pursue them avidly, and that you are achieving them. You are accomplishing the things that you set out to do. Good on you. Oh, good on you. Good on you. I just love it. I just love it. And I can't say it enough. And it is just a nice way of acknowledging someone else's good news and celebrating it, rejoicing in it. This is a wonderful thing. Good on you. I'll give you another one. Well done. Well done. Again, it's not terribly specific. It doesn't have to be. I mean, you can know a lot of details. When you say well done, you can know everything that went into it. You can know all the work behind it. But you can also just see a stranger. You're walking through the lobby of a hotel, and here comes a young man, incredibly well turned out. It's 6:30, so you know he's going out. And he's amazingly well turned out, and everything about his appearance is perfect, and you know that he invested a whole lot of effort in it. And you can look at that kid and you can say, well done. And you can watch the reaction, and you can see it wash over him, and you can see the appreciation for your having acknowledged his efforts. You don't even really know what the efforts are. You know what you can see, but you don't know what else he did, and you don't know what it is that he's proud of. It might be his appearance, because that's what you noticed, that's what you saw, but it could be something else, that he could be going to make a presentation and he's been working for weeks to perfect this presentation. And he's on top of his game and he knows it, and you know that he knows it because it shows in the rest of it, in his body language and his appearance and the way that he presents himself. You know that he knows it. Whatever it is that he's proud of, you know that he has a right to be proud of it, and you say, well done. And he responds as if you did know. He responds as if you'd read his mind. You haven't, of course. You don't really know anything except here's someone who has values and avidly pursues them. And I think that's wonderful, and I want to encourage it. Well done. Beautiful. Just beautiful. That's a benediction. One of the things that annoys me about people of faith, I actually like people of faith. I get along with them really well. I like the way they raise their kids. Let me tell you something. If you want me to have an opinion about your moral philosophy, let's talk about the way the kids turn out. Because if the kids turn out awful, I think your moral philosophy sucks. That's the proof of the pudding is in the children. The philosophy that I am imparting to the dads who listen to me is a very strident moral philosophy about raising good, self-responsible children. I'm competing with the Catholics, the Mormons, the Jews, the Buddhists, the Muslims. I'm competing with a lot of people of very devout faith in order to produce future generations of brilliant, self-responsible human beings. This is what I'm aiming at, is to kick up an atheist doctrine that produces children as good as theistic doctrines do. Theistic doctrines are ridiculous, indefensible, unbelievably stupid, and yet, in many cases, the children turn out great. And this is not caused by supernatural forces which don't exist. This is caused by moral philosophy. It doesn't have to be rigorously defensible to be practically useful. And the religions I named, among others, have good practical rules of thumb for raising bright, self-responsible children, and it works. But one of the things I don't like about religious people is the imputation that atheism must be nihilistic. I think that they're probably not wrong about most atheists. I have nothing to do with most atheists. I really don't like them. I don't like the way they behave. I think they're churlish and irresponsible. They're needlessly rancorous. They're aggressive in their displays in ways that guarantee that they will not successfully persuade anyone to their position. Their entire persuasive arsenal consists of browbeating people into submission. I detest, I abhor that behavior. I'm not in love with the way that religious people behave all the time, but in general, I like the way religious people behave as compared to the way most atheists behave. But the imputation that atheism must be nihilistic is erroneous, is false, which is obviously one of the things that we prove week upon week upon week at the Church of Splendor, is that atheism and nihilism are not correspondent. They don't require each other. To the contrary, that an atheism devoid of belief, devoid of faith, devoid of investment in the future is not an atheism at all. It's simply nihilism. That to argue that there must be a God because blah, 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 I don't care. There is no reasonable argument for the existence of supernatural claims, but that doesn't mean that there is no right way to get the job done. To the contrary, the right way is easily discoverable by the mind. We are so amazingly successful that you can watch me sitting in my living room making a movie, and who knows where you are or what year this is. I have the ability to impart my moral philosophy to you by remote control, to broadcast someday, I may hope, to 4.2 billion people. This is all made possible by the mind. It is not made possible by supernatural claims. And so certainly moral philosophy is discernible to the mind, but the absence of supernatural claims doesn't mean the absence of reasonable, responsible, ontologically demonstrable claims about reality. To the contrary, the reason that you need my philosophy is that there is no other philosophy. There is no other way to guide human behavior than ontologically consonant teleology, making your choices in consonant with the facts of reality. This is what you must do in order to remain alive. And I'm not insisting that mine is the best way ever, but mine is the best way so far, according to me and 42 really great dads. But I don't like the idea that the only possible future to believe in is an afterlife, because obviously that's not the future that people really do believe in. The future they believe in is the future of their own children, the future of their own genetic line, but they don't think of it that way, the future of their own moral philosophy, and if they're thoughtful, they might think of it that way, but what it really boils down to is the future of their own emotional investment, their own love. The love I feel for my children, the love I feel for my grandchildren, and the love that I would feel were I around for my great-grandchildren, for my great-great-grandchildren. The love that I want to pass down to them by way of financial or propertarian legacy, but also by way of intellectual inheritance and emotional commitment. That we are us, and you are of me, even though you will never see me. You are of me. You're a swan boy. You're a swan boy forever. And the swan boys make more swan boys, and the swan boys prevail. Because the swan boys are D's. That's why. But this love that I would transmit to generations unborn, this is the love that keeps all of us alive, and the afterlife is just so much icing on that cake. The cake is the future that we're building, each one of us, with our ideas and with our loves, with our family commitments. And so the ultimate benediction, ultimate means last. The last good word you could say to someone would be the words that you're saying to them when they're dying. What can an atheist say to someone dying? I'm going to promise you a sweet by and by. There's pie in the sky and the sweet by and by. You just sit there in the bed for another 15, 20 minutes and then you'll be dead and everything will be perfect. Just perfect. I don't believe that. I don't believe any of that. My attitude is when I expire, you should dump me into a 39-gallon hefty bag because I won't fit into a smaller one, and throw me on the landfill. Do what you got to do to protect you from any pathogens I might introduce into the water or food supply, but what you're dealing with is garbage. It's no longer animate. What made me alive is now dead. What made my dog Odysseus alive is now dead. What made Shiley alive is now dead. Ebony's behind me. My cat Ebony, who's in all of these movies, or many of these movies, is dying now. Someday soon she'll be dead. Everything that lives in Ebony, everything that I love in Ebony will be gone from this world. My memory will live on. My memory of her will live on. But that's what will be left of her life, will be my memories of her living. And that's the ultimate benediction. The thing that you can say when there's nothing left to be said to someone that you love, someone who's going to be dead very soon. The last good word you can say to that person is a gift of immortality, in a sense. You say, your spirit lives on in me. Your spirit lives on in me. This is bullshit. This is total bullshit. What's a spirit? You name it. Atheists want to deny it. I don't deny it. I would just translate it and say what people mean by soul or spirit is what I mean by self, an ongoing idea of my life. The idea I'm working on most and maintaining the most, regardless of what else I'm doing, I'm always working on that idea. That idea is self-consistent, or it should be, It's all one thing. And so you can say to many people alive right now, you can say Greg Swan, and they will instantly have an idea of who it is you're talking about and what you mean by bringing up my name. This would be myself as expressed in my actions, as observed and interpreted by you, and then issued by you in the form of an expostulation or an evaluation or whatever. But that is my spirit to you, is your idea of my idea of who I am, your idea of my expressions of my idea of who I am. That's my spirit, and I could say your spirit lives on in me, and what that means is that my idea of who you are will live in my memories for as long as my memories live. And this is the way that Ebony will live within me forever. This is the way that Shiley and Odysseus live within me now, my mother and my grandfather, all of the people that I've lost in my life, their spirits live on in me. And this is the benediction that I would offer to my fathers and to their children and to their grandchildren. I'll be long dead before those grandchildren ever set foot on the earth, and nevertheless your spirit lives on in me. With luck, my spirit will live on in you. And with good luck, all of us will spread the good word to so many of us, that we all live better, happier, more fulfilled, more fulfilling, flourishing, self-adoring lives. What more could you want from a church? My name is Greg Swan. This is the Church of Splendor. This is a real church, and you can tell because there's an offering plate. If you want to give this church money, I encourage it. Go to selfadoration.com. Look for the menu item. I don't go to your church. Throw some money our way. We could use it. But in the meantime, we'll be back here next week to talk to you about great big ideas about how to make everything better for everybody from now on. How cool is that? Bless you. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.